Whew! You're right there, pal. I'm going to say, it looks like they're going to touch the floor there. What if you get caught on a low log? You trip over? Not very talkative, that fella, is he? How we doing, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This is your Mosasaur Prince of Steel Tethysaurus Yorkshire, and today I thought I'd talk about something very... obviously not very Mosasaur. We're going to talk about the straight-tusked elephant, Palaeoloxodon, the elephant titan during the Pleistocene era. So let's get straight into it. What is a Palaeoloxodon? So Palaeoloxodon was a large elephantid proboscidean that lived during the Pleistocene era, particularly during the early to late Pleistocene and even into the Holocene. So this guy actually survived to where it encountered humans, but we'll get into that in a bit. So this animal is a lot like modern elephants, but in fact there's a couple of key differences. First of all, this thing was massive. Some adults could get to over 4 meters tall and probably weigh in excess of maybe 15 tons. These were huge animals. Secondly, they're what the used like to say as big-brained. Basically, the front of their head, the top of the skull, the forehead, was incredibly huge, very prominent, a lot like modern Indian elephants, but much more exaggerated. And this massive forehead allowed for massive muscles from the neck to attach to the skull in order to hold up this huge head, with the other feature that differentiates Palaeoloxodon from other elephants, those massive long tusks. Some of those could get up to 4 meters in length. That's longer than a car. So the teeth of Palaeoloxodon are very much like those of modern elephant teeth. They are in segments. We call these segments lamellae, and there's up to 21 of these in Palaeoloxodon teeth, depending on the species. And because they had quite a nice grinding surface, a very wrinkled grinding surface, which actually differentiated them from mammoth teeth, these animals are probably what we call generalists or general browsers. So depending on the species of Palaeoloxodon, they would have ate a variety of different plants and barks. You know, it just depends on the species, really. So Palaeoloxodon ranged from about the early Pleistocene, around about 1.8 million years ago, and potentially lived up to 3,500 years ago, although the evidence for this is very contested, and it's more likely that Palaeoloxodon went extinct around about 12,000 years ago. Now, the early species of Palaeoloxodon lived in Africa 1.8 million years ago, and this was Palaeoloxodon recci. Some of the individuals of this species could get absolutely massive, with some specimens getting up to over 4 meters tall at the shoulder and weighing in excess of 12 tons. So this is the early species, by the way, so they got big very quickly. Now, it seems that Palaeoloxodon recci seems to have diverged from a line that actually led up to modern African elephants, which seem to be the closest living relative to Palaeoloxodon in general. And it seems like the Palaeoloxodon recci is actually the forebearer of most of the other species of Palaeoloxodon, particularly the Eurasian species. So around about 800,000 years ago, Palaeoloxodon recci actually ventured out, or a population of them ventured out of Africa and dispersed across Eurasia, giving rise to more unique species of Palaeoloxodon. So we generally group Palaeoloxodon species, the vast diversity of them, into two groups, but bear in mind these are not taxonomic groups, these are not classification groups, these are just sort of general groups for them. We have the mainland type, which are absolute monsters. Some of these could be up to 4 meters, maybe even 5 meters tall, and potentially weighing up to 22 tons, but that weight is disputed. And then we have the little tiny island dwarf ones. Yeah, these guys, some of these got no bigger than, say, a polar bear. They were tiny. Tiny little elephants. You could ride them. You could ride them into war if you wanted to, but don't do that because war's bad, and riding a tiny elephant is probably not going to end well for you either. No. Now, there are two significant species of Palaeoloxodon that evolved to giant sizes. There's P. pneumaticus, which a fragmentary specimen indicates an animal that could be up to 19 to 22 tons and maybe 5 meters tall, but unfortunately that specimen's gone. Don't know where it is, but the other one is P. antiquus, the European straight-tusked elephant. Now, what's interesting with the occurrence of P. antiquus is that it occurs around the same time, same place, roughly, as the steppe mammoth, and the steppe mammoth seems to have a different feeding strategy to this European straight-tusked elephant, and that's how they seem to coexist. But also the straight-tusked elephant is not adapted for cold weathers. I mean, look at it, it's naked, bloody hell. He's going to be Nesh out there, isn't he? He needs a coat. Do you need a cagoule? Do you need a cagoule? Not talking to me still. But what's interesting as well is that Palaeoloxodon antiquus seems to have occurred around the same time when the southern mammoth, the progenitor to the steppe mammoth, the ancestor if you will, it seems to have come into play around the same time that the southern mammoth is going extinct. So something's happened there to where it's probably out competing the southern mammoth. The southern mammoth has evolved into the steppe mammoth. The steppe mammoth's like, right, we have a round two of this. I'm gonna do my bit, you do your bit. You stay over there, stay over here. You know, does that work, pal? Yeah, cool. And nowhere is this co-occurrence more prominent than in the UK, where a rare occurrence of Palaeoloxodon, antiquus, and the steppe mammoth seem to occur with each other in the UK, while across most of Europe they actually don't occur with each other. But the occurrence here in the UK shows that these animals were able to niche partition, or basically go after different foods from each other. So, you know, I'm not fighting over your grub, you're not fighting over mine. Hey ho, we could live peacefully. However, another interesting little bit about this particular species, P. antiquus, is that we think this animal is what we'd call a reticulate species. And this means that this species was actually generated through hybridization of two other species over a long period of time. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, this is actually the same process that gave rise to the Colombian mammoth over in, Colombia, America, that really good film studio. But it looks like that P. antiquus has had a lot of admixture, basically, a lot of hybridization, a lot of people, a lot of elephants getting it on, you know what I mean? Hey. But we seem to have a lot of admixture from mammoths, African elephants, forest elephants, even Indian elephants and woolly mammoths. There's a whole lot of hybridization going on there, and the Palaeoloxodon antiquus seems to have been generated through a hybridization event, which, wow, what an animal to be produced from hybrids. And as a result of this, P. antiquus actually has more DNA or more commonality with the forest elephant over in Africa than the forest elephant actually has with the African bush elephant, but those two are classed as Loxodonta. I know, confusing, innit? I know. I'm gonna have to have a cup of tea after that. My head's all over the place. I need to lie down. And then, sticking with P. antiquus again, it seems like a lot of these dwarf island species actually descended from P. antiquus directly. However, there is some arguments as to whether all these actually descended from P. antiquus and may have descended from other massive species of Palaeoloxodon. So they've basically gone from a giant towering 4 meter, 15-ton behemoth to an animal no bigger than a sheep in some cases. These were tiny, tiny elephants. They lost a lot of mass. Wow. And simply put, the reason these animals got really small is because they ended up on islands where there was really no competition, there was no predators, they didn't need that big size, and they didn't need to eat so much, so hey ho, they were living it large. Pun not intended. Now, unfortunately, we do actually have evidence of Palaeoloxodon being hunted and butchered by ancient humans. We have archaic human evidence over in Africa and India, and we also have evidence of Homo heidelbergensis and Homo neanderthalensis in Europe actually butchering the European straight-tusked elephant. So, yeah, not good. And unfortunately, yeah, modern humans got to the dwarf ones, started butchering them. Sorry. However, it should be emphasised that human hunting is probably not the one single cause that killed off Palaeoloxodon. It seems to be a combination of climate change, competition, and human hunting in conjecture with all those other two. And then boom, Palaeoloxodon is gone. By about 12,000 years ago, it looks like. Done. Just whoosh, gone. Which is such a shame because it's a majestic animal. Look at it, it's beautiful. Now, the reason I actually want to bring up Palaeoloxodon is because actually I was part of the mammoth digging project from Kearney Wick over in Swindon, and just a day or two after I left the quarry, they actually found the remnants of a tooth of a straight-tusked elephant, and you can actually go and watch it in this interview right here. Please do, because it's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, me, I'm there. Me, I'm interviewed. It's pretty cool, I think. But anyways, enough about me. Just to finish off about Palaeoloxodon, it is one of the most majestic and absolutely amazing animals I've ever known. Palaeoloxodon is a true testament to the size of mammals, particularly land mammals, how they can get. If there is a 22-ton Palaeoloxodon out there, we better find it soon because, wow, that's incredible. But anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later. Mosasaur Prince out. Ta-ta.